Okay, guys, welcome to the OTT Red Spotlight Podcast. Here we are at IBC 2023. Hope you're having a fantastic event. This podcast is sponsored by Bedrock Streaming, and today we're going to be talking about the converging worlds of content production and OTT technologies. Looking forward to the conversation, guys. First of all, what I'd love to do is give you guys the opportunity to introduce yourself to all the viewers and everybody listening or watching. Thomas, you've got a fantastic career story. Pete, it's great to see you again. I know that you have as well. Let's have a quick introduction from you guys before we get set into the topic.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I'm Thomas Müller, CTO of Quest Group. Quest is a worldwide acting system integrator and consultancy. We are building major broadcast stations and are also doing stuff in the OTT world, and we talk later about that, I think.
Fantastic. Welcome to the podcast, Thomas. Mr. Eminger.
Yeah, how's it going? So Pete Eminger, so I was most recently the group CTO at NEP. So I wrapped that up in June, spent 2 years sort of helping NEP sort of expand its footprint and sort of consolidate globally. Before that, I spent 4 years at Blizzard Entertainment. We worked on a lot of different things there, but primarily worked on BlizzCon, which includes like a private OTT monetized platform. So it's been a lot of fun the past few years.
So this should be good. We've got a lot of subject matter expertise at the table. Let's talk about this, guys, right? So, content creation and OTT technologies, obviously they're symbiotic. They depend on each other. What have you guys seen most recently when it comes to those two topics? Let's set the stage for the rest of the conversation. Okay. What are the dynamics from the top of the market right down to the kind of kids that are creating nowadays? Because there's a whole market there as well, right?
Yeah. So, let's say what Quest says is that in the last years, it's more and more in the focus of user-centric. So personalized content, you see that TikTok, they're down the, let's say, every swipe is something, it starts a supercomputer in the background, they do a recommendation. It was a complete new way of acting on content. And the broadcast industry is very slow to combine that because of they don't have the user data at the end. But we are working on getting everything what the user is doing back into the system. And now if we have a new design, we try to ask the broadcaster not to think about mom, dumb, and all this kind of stuff. More like you have a content tab, and every feedback we get from your client has to be in this content tab, and how can we personalize content.
Pete, what's your posture on it? Is it reshaping the entertainment industry?
I think so. I think people are still seeing the focus on live, and basically, although you're seeing some consolidation on a platform level at like a high level, you're seeing like sort of more of a diversification on a content level.
Yeah.
And the content quantity that people want to produce is increasing exponentially. It has for the past 10 years.
Absolutely.
And I think that increase is only able to be driven by like digital and OTT technologies, because otherwise it's not scalable. People aren't launching, hundreds of new linear channels. They're launching hundreds of new OTT channels.
Yeah. On that point, what have you guys seen in terms of, everyone talks about the post-COVID bounce, that being a real catalyst for embracement of technologies, not just on the big channels, the big global channels, but if you think of technologies like Uscreen, where you can buy your own OTT channel for $99 a month, something like that. Have you seen that there's a much wider recognition of the value of technologies in order to deliver content to markets from a cross-section of the markets?
What I see if I talk to the clients is that in the former days, content was king, or content is king. Maybe content is even today king, but not made for the feeds. That's the money is not coming to them, and they see, let's say, major client of us, they're now building their own technology platform because they feel that some platforms, just technical platforms like YouTube, TikTok, and even Twitter, has more relation to the user than they have. So, and they see now technology and the production, so the content itself, on the same level.
Yeah.
And this is new. Before it was every time the content.
Yeah.
I think, things are getting easier. Like it used to be, producing 6 live languages simultaneous for like a sporting match was really hard. You had to have like 6 full crews, 6 full productions, like 6 times everything. And now with all the new technology that's coming on, you can actually produce that and even more than that for less cost than you could 5 years ago. And so I think that is helping people sort of put out more bespoke content for their viewership.
It's really interesting, right? Because on the back end where most people don't see, let's say, traditional engineering was super complicated, right? You see OB vans, studios, all of that sort of stuff. Big, heavy-duty, world-class stuff. The UI, the way that stuff is more virtualized now in terms of just being able to do things on a laptop from anywhere, even for live streams. What would you guys say over the last few years have been the main technological changes that have enabled that?
Maybe you ask him from behind, because we have done heavy workloads in the cloud, and of course for the user it's easier, and even for the operator.
Yeah.
But the stuff what's now going on behind the scenes with Kubernetes, Docker, all the different cloud vendors, the virtualization, orchestration is much more complex than ever. That's my personal feeling. But of course, Peter's right, you can do much more with less resources. So that's on.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think those technologies he's talking about, like cloud, like so many people even are still like, they say they're afraid of cloud, and then they don't even understand how many workflows they actually have in the cloud in their current workflow environment. So, like that kind of technology is helping scale a lot, but people don't really kind of see it like that. And then also, you kind of sort of set up a creator technologies like the use cream, and those creator technologies are being leveraged a lot more by some of the top tier providers to expand their content set. So
it's actually crazy. Like, I've got a 13-year-old son. He showed me that he has on his phone called CapCut. I don't know if you know CapCut. But the amount of stuff that he can do, it's like a studio in his phone. It's absolutely unbelievable. On that virtualization piece, and you kind of touched on it, Thomas. I was at the Broadcast Innovation Day earlier this year, hosted by Broadcast Solutions, and it was a huge topic in the shift in terms of the talent shortage required in the market now in order to get those kind of cloud-orientated skills, as opposed to the more traditional skill sets associated to engineering. Is that something that you guys have seen as well, particularly maybe at Breast? I don't know if you saw that at any peak when it comes to, the next generation of skills that are required in order to keep up with the way technology is going.
So what we see, of course, that let's say the classical journalist was somehow replaced in some cases with video journalists, so doing all the stuff himself. And even today, of course, they're running complete studios by their own, which was not possible, let's say, 50 years ago, And but if it comes to virtualization, what we see now as a trend, which, let's say, cast channels, so that the channel maybe only exists in the cloud or only exists on the platform. And the new trend is even that we have AI-driven stuff on it. Like, you don't have a real moderator, you have an AI-driven moderator. You have chat systems on the second screen, and all this kind of stuff is what's driving ours, and what is the at the end the personalization stuff inside of.
Absolutely. This was going to be my next line of questioning, actually, around what do you guys see as the latest trends? Stuff just continues to accelerate, right, when it comes to technology. I guess that's the sandpit that we live in and love. What do you see in terms of the latest trends? You mentioned AI. What are you picking up? What's on your radar?
I mean, people are starting to use it. I actually don't know if I've really seen people doing anything really groundbreaking with it yet. Like, people are doing, they're generating text and they're generating some content with it, but they're not really really fully evolving it into their workflows in terms of people are doing machine learning automation, not really like generative AI yet in terms of the production space. And I think that's a pretty big growth opportunity for people right now.
So when you see that kind of stuff, does it trigger ideas in your mind around use cases and applications that organizations should be moving towards?
Yeah, of course. But, sometimes it's hard to enact them and put them in place. And especially with the AI space, the models aren't really fully developed yet. And not a lot of companies are at the right scale where they actually have the kind of investment that they could develop the model themselves. And so then you're dependent on the public models. And then in sort of a more niche content area, that public model might not be sufficient for making the kind of quality content that you need to make.
So what we see, let's say the upcoming stuff, or let's have three categories: optimization, scalability, and pioneer and expand. And I would say user-centric approach, so personalization is in the optimization stuff. We have to learn to know your user, what content he likes, now looking to use that. Scalability is 5G is a large topic for us. They are not the actual technology, but what you can do with it. So let's say something in a live stadium where you get augmented reality on your mobile device and follow the match and see graphics on the device explaining new stuff. Then it's of course cloud. It's And I think only 11 to 15% of today's broadcasters are using cloud in their majority of workflows, but I agree that maybe 50% doesn't know that they have already workflows in the cloud, like Teams or stuff like that. Yeah. And the new hot stuff, you see it also here, this AI, of course, what you can do with AI. So giving you text, shortening text for highlight, headline production, and or call to actions, like how a user is more engaged to watch your content. Metaverse is a topic. Yeah, I'm personally not so believing in it, but what I take serious is don't laugh, is the Vision Pro from Apple, because there are two companies teaming up, Apple and Disney, for producing content and the technology. And I don't really get it to have a metaverse where everything is virtual, if you can have your real world and the computing world interact. So spatial computing is a topic, and at least gamification also.
You guys are both used to working at board level, senior executive level, in large organizations in this space. At that level, do you constantly have a mind towards the small disruptive firms that might be able to be more nimble and accelerate faster into a space? With some of these technologies, some of the stuff you mentioned, I want to talk about more, Thomas, but you got to watch out for these companies, right? Because they get burst out of nowhere. My ChatGPT did, developed in 10 years, and then in 3 weeks it was everywhere. Yeah. What do you guys think? Where's your radar when it comes to risk?
I think this is more or less our job, because you have the example TikTok, yeah? They're coming out of nowhere, yeah? Was a good idea, and it means, and it took, I think, 6 months, YouTube, to adapt vertical video and have the same technology. And so as with us, if I see something really interesting, maybe I fail with 50%, but 50% I'm right. So if they are not doing that, then maybe our company don't live so long. So we are surviving by inventing us every 3 years new. So at first start as a box reseller, yeah. Now our let's say software development is 40% of the company, which is unusual for a system integrator. But how you will survive if, let's say, 50-60% of workflows moving into the cloud and you can't do the software for it? So customization of products. So I have to say that.
What do you think, B? How do you set your radar when it comes to risk and disruption?
Well, at big companies, you have to sort of protect some of your teams. You have to sort of get like a protected buffer space around them so they can function like a small team. Because if you're in a 5,000 person company, you can't function like a 5,000 person company. You have to function like 50, 100 person, 500, 100 person companies, And so that's kind of like the approach. And then that sort of enables you to be nimble. And you have to sort of have the flexibility to trust the people that work for you. Like, once you're running big teams, you're not connected to every single thing, every single technology and everything going on. But, you have people that are connected to those different technologies, and you have to trust the people that work for you.
Yeah. It's fun that you said that, because we have done exactly the same. We are running at 1,400 people now, but I have divided them into small teams. So we have no departments, but we have teams of 10 to 12 people who are doing, let's say, a complete project for customer. And of course, I can use other teams, but it's really a team structure from only 10 to 12 teams around the.
What are the headlines around why you do that, Thomas? Is it to engender more intimacy and faster moving, or
we found out as we grow, there's of course some growing pain, and we work much better as a smaller company. And our idea was to have a lot of smaller companies, but without the P&L.
I love that.
Running, and one guy is responsible for, let's say, 10 people. And we thought a little bit about how is it in your private life, how many friends here, how many people you interact. And as the company was going, and I was in peak time, I have 80 people were reporting to me. Yeah. Well, my whole week was done with reports, and after that, I don't know what I have done the year, and so I changed that. It's now not more than 10.
Yeah, that makes sense. I want to bounce on to some of the topic you mentioned, Thomas, because we talked about disruptive influences and something appearing from nowhere. But do you guys share the philosophy where, we've got OTT, it's well established now, this whole hall is full of content and OTT providers, but what's the next big thing? Like, is it going to be, Apple Glass, or something's got to happen, right, that's going to constitute the next frontier? And do you think that that's also going to lead to a convergence of other technologies into the same kind of space, betting, gamification, that sort of stuff?
For me, the next big thing really is spatial computing, so that you can interact with your real reality with your own. I saw some, let's say, prototypes, which is really amazing because it's really sucking you into the content, and it's a completely different user experience. And if I see my child or my kids today, the youngest one is now 20, but they are more into games, and I think they even don't watch it from the beginning to the end. Yeah. I think the most things what they are doing is 10 minutes, and without interaction, it's hard for them to follow. And that's the reason why I think, okay, spatial computing will be the next big thing. What do you think, Craig?
Well, I think there's if you break the content apart into two major buckets, one is like your sit back content, like I just want to sit back, I want to watch the World Cup finals, I don't want my phone in my hand, I just want to watch.
Yeah.
And then you've got all this content where it's interactive, you're sitting there, you're surfing, second screening. So when I was at Blizzard, we actually launched a failed product, and we actually sort of learned a lesson. So we assumed our gamer audience, because they're gamers, would want interactive second screen content. And so we launched this really, really amazing cutting edge second screen experience. You could switch players, you could control your own view in the game, like in 3D.
Wow.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
And nobody used it. They all just watched the mainstream, and our mainstream viewership went up, and I think it was just because of the marketing effort of the second screen.
Wow.
So maybe it had some benefit, but nobody was using the interactive change your view perspective, and that was really a lesson for us, and we didn't understand that dynamic. We really thought people would want more interactive content.
Yeah.
And sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't.
Yeah. It's interesting because, viewer experience is a terminology that you hear a lot when you're in an event like this and doing what we do. But it makes me wonder whether or not that terminology is going to evolve into something like interactive experience.
Yeah.
When we spoke before, Thomas, around, the kind of augmentation and the topic that you've just raised. And actually how you can imagine that people with a viewing experience traditionally will sit down and watch something, the lean back experience. But actually, people do stuff on the move on devices is already happening. Yeah. And now participating in the real world whilst they're in a virtual world is looking more and more likely all the time.
Yeah, I think it has to be more natural. So from the media and entertainment perspective, everybody knows 3D. Yeah, it was a hype. Yeah. And now nobody's talking about it. Yeah, but it was too complicated to use with the best. So that's the only thing where I'm not convinced about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think technology grows and grows and grows, I really think that user experience is something you have to learn in the broadcast, because broadcasters so far we produce a product before, and then we see how it works. Of course, I have made the user research, but now I think about more like a service offering. Yeah. So you have snippets of content, but it would be a new form that will survive.
Does, in your mind, when you think about that, Thomas, does that also lead to more evolved next iterations, business models in terms of the monetization?
Absolutely, yeah. Because the industry as such, broadcasting, it's not growing at all. Yeah, you see, even if you look at our conventions, IBC and NAB, you don't see them growing.
Yeah,
it's just somebody else is now doing what somebody else has done before, but it's not really growing. So but what is growing is the let's say entertainment as such for at home. So YouTube, Twitter, all this kind of stuff. And we have to learn that.
Yeah. So here's a question for you, Pete. With everything that we're talking about in terms of where we are, where we've come from, where we are, where we might be going, do these things help to streamline processes for the businesses that provision these services? And do they boost creativity for the people using them?
Well, they boost creativity, but I don't think they streamline processes, because I think, going back to kind of what we were talking about before, it's leading to like the diversification and the explosion of more content. So you've got companies that instead of, 40 years ago, NBC produced one NBC channel, right? So they produced 24 hours of content a day.
Yeah.
Now they're producing hundreds, thousands of hours if you count the TikTok and all their social media content. And so their business processes and workflow processes are enormously more complex. And every time they turn on a channel, so like when a network makes a decision to add a social media channel, it's a huge amount of business complexity for them because they're monetizing all those channels. And so I think the business process side is actually getting more and more complex, which is why you're seeing like, IT departments or CIO groups at these major media companies. It used to be traditional back office IT, and now it was business process groups, which is what typically a CIO leads, is way more integrated in the business today. And so it's enormously more complex.
Yeah. Thomas, what do you think?
Now, for me, as I already said, user-centric is a thing we are working on. Maybe I have to go a little bit back. If you watch Star Wars produced in the 80s, this was a wow effect for everybody. And I think the next wow effect, this is something like augmented reality.
Yeah.
You have to create it because for the people, they are now used to effects, visual effects and everything, or like the new Indiana Jones, where you see AI in work. Harrison Ford turned into 30 years, yeah? So this is somehow a wow effect for us, but now another wow effect for the younger generation, yeah? Because for them it's just normal, yeah?
A totally different wow effect is required.
Yeah, and to create new business, we have to create some fantastic ideas, and it's our job at Quest, to make them reality, to make the business processes, but also the technical process that it can be worked, So this is also customer from us, So for each and every Disney movie, it's 235 different versions of it, because of compliance, because of language, because of on which device it's running, and all this kind of stuff. So it's a large complexity, I agree, but they're not doing that for fun. They're making money off this 230 versions.
Well, this is an interesting point, right? The more complex, the more people, the more time, the bottom line gets affected ultimately.
Yeah.
Final question for you guys. When I work with guys like you, CTOs in big companies, I kind of have this picture in my mind of you having this big telescope and looking out into the future of what's going to happen. That's one of the benefits of being in that position in a senior leadership team, right? When and if you actually do anything like that, it might just happen in my mind. But if that happens, what are the things that you're most excited about in this area over the next 3 to 5 years? What would you tell people to watch out for?
What's happening with AI? How we use it? How it will boost in the business in the next years? Yeah. So I think some people who don't understand AI, maybe the expectation is too high, and they will get disappointed. Yeah. That's also clear for me. Yeah. But AI is definitely something you can't ignore. Yeah. You have to do something with it, and spatial computing. So the augmented reality, all this kind of stuff will come for sure.
I think the core is going to be, it's actually going to sound less boring or more boring, but like the processing.
It's supposed to be the most exciting thing that's going to happen, Pete.
Use the real intelligence.
the chip manufacturers and their development on chip processing and bringing processing power to more people, and they're adopting more of the standards. Like you're seeing NVIDIA getting on with 2110, you're seeing all the adoption of NDI, and at a processing level, which means that those products will be more accessible to people to bring home. So it's going to boost that creator market. And I think the biggest area we're going to see that is actually in real-time engines, which actually dovetails off exactly what he was saying with spatial computing. And I think a lot of people don't understand how much some of these, people call them game engines, but they're not really just for video games, like Unreal Engine, Unity, and people are now making their own engines, Industrial Light and Magic has their own. Yeah. And so I think that increase of processing power and being able to bring these real-time engines out is going to bring, it's going to empower things like Vision Pro and all these 3D capabilities and increased in content, but it's going to put it in the hands of creators, whereas right now that level of content is really only at this high level.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what you're going to really see over the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah. Amazing conversation, guys. Thanks so much for your insights, your intelligence, and your passion around this topic. I hope you enjoy the rest of IBC, and thanks for being guests on this episode of the OTT Red Spotlight Podcast, sponsored by Bedrock.